My grandmother was, without a doubt, the most purely loving person I have ever met. Her love was selfless and unconditional. Experiencing that kind of love, even for a short time, leaves an indelible mark on a person's soul. I was immeasurably blessed to have it in my life every day for many years. When I came into this world, Grandma and my grandpa, Nicholas, welcomed me into their home with great joy and helped raise me for years with boundless love. Grandma dropped everything, quitting her job to become a stay-at-home grandma. Because of this, my perspective on Grandma is unique in some ways. But one of Grandma's many virtues is that she was the same loving, joy-filled person to everyone she met. What made Grandma saintly, to use her word, is that she exemplified the Christian virtues of faith, hope, and love. Grandma had deep faith held with total conviction. Faith informed her worldview and helped her to keep her priorities straight without hesitation. She prayed every day with the utmost sincerity. She prayed nightly for everyone in our family and countless others, asking God, and especially Mary, to help the people she loved. Whether it was an illness, a job interview, a final exam, or even a long-distance flight, Grandma would keep the prayers coming. For my part, she and Grandpa would often endearingly remind me that they were not only my grandparents, but my godparents as well. My most enduring memory of Grandma's faith was when she sat with me at my bedside every night to say our prayers together. It was the same every night. Our Father, Hail Mary, Dear Jesus, Glory be, and Angel of God, in that order. But it wasn't just a rote exercise. At the end of our prayers, we would ask God to bless a long list of people, family, friends, or really anyone that Grandma thought could use a few extra prayers. Now, as an impatient small child, I often tried to negotiate her down to a more concise, God bless everybody. But she was not having it. Her simple but resolute faith, and absolute faith, and her diligent devotion to prayer was a living example that planted the seed of faith in me, my family, and countless others. And I now think of her every night when I say these same prayers with my sons. Where did this faith come from? It was the God-given faith of her parents. Through this faith, Grandma endured poverty and many more hardships, yet still lived with gratitude and authentic happiness. Simply put, it is a faith that has been passed down through the generations. Second is hope, which C.S. Lewis defined as a continual looking forward to the eternal world, a recognition that by our natures, we are not made for this world alone. As anyone who met Grandma can attest, she possessed an almost childlike, joy-filled disposition. She lived with a simple, uncomplicated optimism, which goes some way toward explaining why she somehow appeared nearly wrinkle-free into her 11th decade. She had this uncanny ability to cheer people up and help keep things in perspective. She was also incredibly consistent. She was the same loving and joy-filled person to everyone she encountered, and regardless of what might have been going on in her life at the time. For me, especially over the past decade, every phone call with her ended exactly the same way. I love you forever and a day. While I am terribly sad that I was not given a chance to say goodbye, I do take comfort in knowing more or less exactly what such a conversation would have been like. I love you forever and a day, since the day you were born. Where did all this come from? Short answer again is from God. The slightly longer answer is from her lived experience. I often consider with awe how she met my grandfather at age 17 in 1937 and committed to him as he enlisted as a Marine after Pearl Harbor and headed overseas to the Pacific Theater. He was on the other side of the world for years, under unfathomable circumstances, and with almost no ability to communicate. Yet she remained faithful to him until he finally returned, and they were reunited in what turned out to be 57 years of marriage, raising 3 remarkably successful children, and seeing their 5 grandchildren thrive over the years. Grandma endured this unfathomable uncertainty, not by anything earthly, but by trusting in God and keeping the bigger eternal picture in mind. Third is love, and love in the Christian sense, that is, a selfless and unconditional love. When I think of unconditional love, I think of Grandma. I have known at every moment of my life that nothing I could ever do would make her love me any less. I've known this with unwavering conviction since the day I was born. I can also say with confidence that living with love in her life every day is what kept Grandma going over all these years. She raised Joan, Jim, and my mother so well and was so incredibly proud of all that they accomplished. When Grandpa died nearly 20 years ago, my mom and dad took her into their home and sacrificed so much to care for her for 14 years. Aunt Joan and Uncle Jim could help provide for her care through their generous support over all these years, through their generosity. And of course, Uncle Jim has spent time with her nearly every day for the past 18 years, including the last 4, where he endured nearly as many sleepless nights as I've had as a parent of 3 children under 5. Their late night duets of Old Man River and so many other classics brought her so much happiness and peace. And as many of you know, her kindness and sharp wit were an endless font of homily material. It was all such a virtuous cycle because she loved Uncle Jim so much and took such great pride in all that he's accomplished in his decades of ministry. Through it all, Grandma very often spoke about how much she missed Grandpa. But invariably, when asked if she wanted to be with him again, she would smile and say, "Oh no, not yet." Her love had always given her life meaning, and there was no limit to the amount of love that she had to give. Grandma may no longer be with us here in body, but she will remain with us, all of us, every single one of us whose lives she touched with love, alive in our hearts as part of who we are. For my part, I know that my loving relationship with Grandma lives on, both through my very existence and as an integral part of who I am and aspire to be. Her love is more alive than ever now that I have children of my own, as I strive and struggle to follow her example of unconditional love and devotion, to raise my children with the same love with which she raised me. Her love will live on through the generations until, by the grace of God, we are all together again, because what does not pass away is love.
Thank you, Andy. I want to begin again by thanking you for taking the time to be here. It means the world to us, and there's such a support. I want to say a special word of thanks to my brother priests and deacons for being here. My mom would be so psyched to see so many collars in this place. And Matt mentioned that my father served as a Marine captain in World War II, but one of the greatest battles, of course, was in the Solomon Islands, and he fought there. And I'm delighted that Chris Cardone, who's the Archbishop of the Solomon Islands, is here. The circle of life is complete, that Chris now serves in the Solomon Islands where my father fought for his country, and what a great thing, the circle of life. There are no accidents, to be sure. Let me tell you a little bit about, before I talk about Mom and what her life says about the gospel, I want to tell you a little bit about my dad. We used to go often enough when I was a young priest to funerals, and he would then drive home with me, and he'd say to me a couple of things. He'd say, for instance, where Mom was going to be buried, he'd say to me, are they going to let priests get married ever? And I said, not in my lifetime, Dad. Okay, we're going to Holyrood, we're going to get a condo for 3. So it's me, my mom, and Dad, and we're going to be buried together. But he said something else that was equally interesting. He said, no offense to you priests, because I know you're doing your job, But how is it that every funeral I go to, the person you're burying turns out to be a saint? I said, well, Dad, we try to celebrate what's good about the person. I know, he said, but every one of them can't be a saint. And I guess in so many ways he's right. But I have to tell you, there's no exaggeration here. There's no need to paint a rosier picture than what is. Everything Matt said about my mother is true. She really was the real deal. You know, when my father died, the gospel I chose for him was the story of the father who had two sons. He told them both to go work in the field. One said, yes, Father, but he didn't go. And the other said, no, I'm not going, but he went. I picked that gospel because my father was the kind of guy who at first would resist, but always, in the end, do the right thing. My mom, on the other hand, is both those sons. She said yes, and she meant it. Her yes was an eternal yes throughout her whole life. The love and hope and goodness. And I picked that gospel today simply because for her, life was pretty simple. We're only here for two things: to love God and to love the people He places in our lives. And if you get that right, you've got it all right. In so many ways over the years, when you read the works of the Little Flower, St. Therese, or you hear about Mother Teresa, now St. Teresa of Calcutta, they both say the same thing. It's not important to do the extraordinary, the flash in the pan. It is so important to do the ordinary with great love. And so she did. You know, no matter what I say about her and what wonderful life she lived, the truth is this past week has been one for me of overwhelming sadness. For lots of reasons, one of which is that she is truly my dearest friend, and she's my heart. And I've said many times at funerals here at Our Lady of Lourdes, you know, it doesn't matter how long people live. You know, and there's no comfort at all in her going at 102, except that I'm grateful to God for giving her the time. But it still hurts. It still hurts. I mentioned that to you, though, because last night, Matthew faxed me what he was going to say today. I took it into my mother's room. I sat down in one of her wheelchairs, because she hasn't walked in almost a dozen years, and I read it. And the sadness in me was lifted. I was sad because all that goodness and joy and love that she brought into the world, I thought was exiting with her. And it took my grandson to remind me that love does not end, and that the seed that she planted of faith and love only goes on from generation to generation. And so, Mom, while I'm going to miss you so much, you're not gone. You live on in our love and our faith, and we owe you so very much. I want to talk, if I can, just for a few moments, I promise, because one thing I also learned last night when I read Matthew's remarks was, I really don't need to go homily at all. This kid is good, you know. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
What I call Mom's teachable moments, what she taught me and all of us. I'll just mention a couple that I promise will one with Mass. You know, I talk to you guys all the time in church about fall off the fence and get to a point in life where you're all in. Don't be lukewarm. Make a commitment. Let's try. And she was, in every aspect of her life, all in. All in terms of being obviously wife and mother, sister, and daughter. But all in too in terms of her faith, which she practiced without cease, in giving without ceasing. She was all in all the time, and it wasn't always easy. I would want to paint a picture, you know, Father Brian Morris here, and someone saying, well, I like his homilies, but he comes from a too-perfect family, and I can't relate. We can't apologize for the family you come from. We all come from good people, but every family's got its problems, and we certainly did too. But she was all in. So her belief was, if we have problems, we faithfully work them out. We don't break away, we don't give up, we keep on keeping on, always and forever, no matter what, because that's what love demands. She was all in. I'll give an example of physically how she was all in. When Matthew was born and he came to live with my folks, my mom discovered shortly thereafter that she had breast cancer. And we went up to North Shore and we met with Dr. John Mountain, who is with her now in heaven, I pray. And he explained to her what a mastectomy was all about. And the first thing she said to him was, I've got a baby at home, and I need to be able to carry him and lift him. Is this going to get in the way of that? And he said, well, there's something else. We haven't done much of it, but there's something called a lumpectomy. And it's just the lump, the tumor, and a lot of radiation to follow up. But it's not as deep and cutting and limiting as a mastectomy would be. Well, I've got a baby at home. Let's go for number 2. She was all in. She thought first and foremost about the kid waiting at home, more than she thought about her own physical welfare. I thank God that he got her through that. He got her through 2 years later, having to go for a bypass surgery. And I'll tell you too, I went to the hospital the morning of that surgery. And I said, Mom, what can I do for you? She wanted me there early before everyone else came. And she said, well, I want to go to confession. I said, Mom, I want to go to confession to you. I said, Mom, you're one of the purest souls I've ever known. What possible sins could you have? And she said, Jimmy, it's always better to be safe than sorry. She loved having a priest that could beg and call. I shared with Sammy over the weekend that every time in the past 4 years that she's been here at Our Lady of Lourdes, I'd walk into a room where she was with others, and she'd say, here comes my wonderful, wonderful son. And he's a priest. I'm glad, Mom, to make you happy. It certainly has made me happy to be a priest for you. Something else I want to talk about, I promise, is about that poverty thing. Matthew mentioned you grew up in poverty. It seems to me, in my experience, that when people grow up really poor, it can do one of 2 things to you. It can make you bitter and angry at the short stack you were handed. Or it can have an opposite effect, and that it did for my mom. She looked at her poverty as a reminder for the rest of her life, when she was not poor, to remember that there were still people out there who were poor, and to never ever forget them. I've shared with some of you that my dad in their middle years thought he'd be doing her a favor by getting her a woman to help clean the house who would come every week. And my mother would drive to Roosevelt to pick her up, and then come back to West Hempstead to bring her to our home. She would be busy making this young lady lunch. She would then go through the house and collect all sorts of things she thought we really didn't need, but maybe she did. She would then take her shopping for clothes for her children. By my father's standards, she would certainly overpay her. And then she'd drive her home. And I remember hearing my father saying one time, who's working for who? But I think secretly my dad was so proud of the fact that this woman who grew up with nothing would remember those who have less and use her life for that purpose. Sometimes I think people think that when you're a priest that you somehow or another have your parents' vocation, like they wanted this. And yet, I must tell you something else wonderful about her. We had a retreat in the seminary called Exodus 33, and we go away for an Ignatian retreat for 30 days of silence. I know it's very hard for you if you're from this parish to imagine me being quiet for 30 days. But we did, cut off from the world. But before I went, my mom gave me a letter that I just found this week. And she said, I know you're going on that long retreat. And I know this could be one of the most important moments of your life where you decide about priesthood. I want to tell you up front that priesthood is a noble and a wonderful, wonderful vocation. But I want you to know going in, if it's not for you, that we, your dad and I, we love you simply and forever. I hope you decide to be a priest, but I don't need you to be a priest. Whatever you do, Jen, as long as you're happy and peaceful, and you know it's what God's plan for you is, then you do what you have to. What she gave me is what I so often say at baptisms. The richness of parents, that they raise a child, love them, nurture them, clothe them, feed them, challenge them, correct them, just so that one day, if they're really good parents, they love their kids enough to let them go to become the people they're supposed to be. And that's what she did for Patty and for Joan and for me. Final thought. It takes a village. I never thought I would be quoting Hillary Clinton, ever. But I have learned through this process of Mom's life, the night before my dad died, we sat at his dining room table and he said to me, you know, I don't think this thing is going well. He was battling cancer at that point. But I know you'll take care of your mother. And I know that people often ask me, you know, is it a heavy burden? And I say, and they think I'm just saying it because I'm a priest, I say, no, it's a privilege. But it's not a privilege that I've carried alone at all. I have not just two sisters, but a great extended family who have been so incredibly there for my mom. I have some caretakers you wouldn't believe who became like daughters to my mom. They're here today, I'm happy to say. Portia and Patricia, dear Anna, of course, Linda, and I want to mention one guy, Billy, who has taken such awesome care of my mother for so long and checked on her every day with her fragile health. That's the village I'm talking about. But also there's one more village, and it's you guys. You know, for 14 years when she lived with my sister, I would go and visit her at night over there. But it became necessary for me to take her on 4 years ago. And I have to tell you, you have allowed me to be both a pastor who does his job, but a guy who loves and cares for his mom. And I will be grateful for the rest of my life for the people of Our Lady of Lourdes for offering hospitality to this beautiful, beautiful girl. I thanked all the priests before, but I need to especially thank the priests in my rectory who took to calling her mom and have treated her like their own. I can't thank them enough. I think in some ways she brightened our home, and I know for me it was a source of great joy and grace to have my mom always there. Every night I'd be with her and we would sit at the edge of the bed and we would pray together and we would sing together and we would talk. And always, always, she would say goodnight with a grateful heart. Grateful for all the blessings she'd received, family and friends, the country she lived in, the God she believed in. I remember not too long ago, we sat at the edge of the bed and she was getting more and more fragile. And she was in my arm and leaning into me and said, Jimmy, thank you so much for taking such good care of me. And I said, Mommy, it's a privilege. And so it is. I'd like to end by singing, you poor people, I'm going to sing to you. Back when my dad was in the service, there was a popular song, and it was written by a wonderful woman named Vera Lynn. The World War had begun, and so many of these young guys and gals were going off to war. And she wrote this song about the hope that one way or another, either by them coming home after the war or meeting them in heaven, they would meet again. And the song is called appropriately, We'll Meet Again. And I'd like to share with you the words of a song that I believe reflects the words my mom would speak and pray and sing to us herself. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through just like you always do, till the blue skies chase the dark clouds all away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know, tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. That song you heard sung from the heart, but I'd like you to hear it sung right. So I've asked Melissa and Matt, our co-directors of music, to sing it the way it should be sung. Here's We'll Meet Again.
Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive my dark house far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know, tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. Me tiger, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. I'll walk with God from this day on, His helping hand I'll lean upon. This is my prayer, my humble plea. May the Lord be ever with thee. There is no death, always broken. There is no fear when I live to Him. I'll lean on Him forever, and He forsake me never. I'll walk with God, I'll take His